Not the
Hello, how are
camera.
you? Yes, my
I'm
name is
doing
Lori
great.
Beckman, and I am here with Sabin Karma. He is one of four identical quadruplets, and I'm so excited about this interview. Sabin was not meant to be normal from the moment he was born. Sabin was the last of four babies born in just under 2 minutes on November 7th, 1997, and you just had a birthday, so you're 23. Happy birthday,
Yes,
Sabin.
thank you.
Sabin is an identical quadruplet boy, a 1 in 600 million chance of birth. And this made him and his brothers national celebrities in their early years. However, once you get to know Sabin, you will realize his true uniqueness far exceeds the statistical significance. Sabin has a deep passion for people and a human connection. He is charismatic and powerful and a powerful presence, but also authentic and vulnerable. He is passionate dreamer and a go-getter, but also deeply spiritual and self-aware. He is the genius behind the Karma Quads YouTube channel, where him and his identical quadruplet brothers share the deep challenges and struggles they have had to overcome from living such a unique lifestyle. So, Sabin, tell me about a day in the life of an identical quadruplet boy.
Yeah, I'm happy to tell that. I think a lot of people think that it comes with this sense of it's unique in some ways, but it's not unique in other ways. I think a lot of people growing up, because we did get that national celebrity-like attention, thought that our lives were absolutely perfect, and that could not be further from the truth. So I'll give you a quick day in the life growing up. We were obsessed with ice hockey. In school, we got all this attention for our collective identity, but not as individuals. And that really caused us to internalize this belief that our individual selves weren't worthy of love or attention, and they were just met with rejection. So we had different ways to deal with that, not as mature ways to deal with that as a child. My main way was to obsess about ice hockey, obsessively compete with my brothers. Like I'll give you a quick example. We didn't eat junk food for 3 years once. We had a very extreme discipline, but it was a really bad destructive motivation behind it, which is the fear of not being loved as individuals. If we didn't go to those extremes, I was most guilty of, I thought my individual self, the real Sabin's not worth it. That was my belief. It's really sad, but that was my belief. So I thought if I can appear perfect in the eyes of everyone else, if I can stand out amongst my brothers, always act like I'm fine, never be vulnerable, always crushing it, then I would be happy. And so I oftentimes shoved down any feelings, negative feelings. I was obsessed about ice hockey and always delaying my happiness until I reached that level of perfection. And so I was so in my own head that I honestly have a really hard time describing what a day in the life was like. I could describe what it was like in here. It was really shitty. But it's really hard to describe it because I wasn't really, I think when you're so obsessed with your own thoughts, you start to live in a world of thoughts themselves and you lose touch with reality. And I think I did that a lot growing up. So I wasn't really there. And that's sad because I always assumed that the external goal that I wanted to achieve had the solution to my internal hole. And it wasn't until much later that I realized that that's not the case. And so a day in the life for us as quadruplets now is we were very competitive with each other. We were trying to stand out from each other, but we also loved each other. Now we're really trying to tinker with this balance between finding our own individual identity, but also how do we morph that into the collective identity? Are they entirely separate? Do they merge with each other? Do we have both aspects of that identity? And so a lot of our days are spent on our own, but then we start to miss each other a lot. But we also want to do our own individual things. We don't want to compete with each other anymore. We all went to separate colleges our freshman year for that reason. So it's really trying to tinker to find that balance. Like our birthday a couple of days ago was just the first time all four of us spent a whole day together in a long time. And other times we did that was like when we did YouTube videos once a week. That was like the only time we'd all four spend together. Sometimes we hang out one-on-one, but not as often as we like. So a day in the life of quadruplets is complicated. It's very similar to a normal life, but there's also this dynamics constantly going on. And the longer I'm with my brothers this year, the more I realize how much baggage there is between each other from childhood that we really have to process through if we all want to have thriving relationships. I used to think when we went off to different colleges, if I was just with my brothers, I'd be happy. But I was with them for 19 years before that, and I wasn't happy. And then some of those same things start coming up when I'm with them again. So that's a big part of it, the individual path, but also processing that baggage, freeing ourselves from that so we can have thriving relationships with each other and ultimately find that balance.
That's amazing. And what I love about you and your brothers is that you all are meditators and you really are very, very, very self-aware. So tell me about meditation, because you are the guy I turn to when I ask about meditation.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, first of all. And I think meditation is one of the main reasons for our level of self-awareness. I got into meditation around 19 or 20 years old. I'll back up. So I was a freshman at the University of Illinois. I had just quit hockey the year before. I had never went to homecoming. I never was even into girls because of hockey. And so my freshman year, I'm like, I'm going to go all out. I'm usually an extremist. So I partied 6 nights a week. I was going after girls 6 nights a week. It was the only thing on my mind, but somehow I got good grades because I wanted that appearance of perfection, the good grades and the work hard, play hard ideal balance. Things started really changing because I was fortunate enough to go through a deep, painful experience that looking back on, I'm so grateful for. So I dropped my own fraternity first semester because I kind of had this intuition that it was too much. They had me out till 5 a.m. and I had a midterm the next day. But I had this delusion that if I just go to a different fraternity next semester, everything's going to be okay. And it really took this moment of I got dropped from one fraternity, or I should specify, I got my bid taken away from one fraternity. I went to a different fraternity second semester. I still remember, I'll never forget this moment. There was this moment where there was a bar crawl with Fiji fraternity, and I invited 2 dates. They canceled on me. I invited this third date that I had met the weekend before. I didn't really know her, DM'd her on Instagram. She came to the bar call late. She met me at the bar, and I was excited. We were talking. She went to the bathroom, and after 10 minutes, and then never saw her again the rest of the night. I was looking for her, nothing. So I'm starting to build this theory in me, like, oh my God, like, why would she leave me? And then I just came to this conclusion. I'm like, you know what? F this. I'm just going to go, because I didn't do this as much. I was more of a passive, like, girls would come to me, and in Illinois that worked out, I guess. But I was like, I'm just going to go talk to every girl there is. And to be fair, where I was at that time, I was drinking heavier. I was starting to drink more and more. And so it's a little blurry, but I remember flashing to the next bar, and I'm talking to this girl. I end up finding out she has a date, but I just like have my hand on her shoulder. I'm not doing anything. I know I have enough awareness to know I'm not doing anything inappropriate, but before I know it, I get a tap, and I look behind me, and it's the vice president of Fiji, and he says, hey, you need to calm down. And I didn't really understand what he meant, but I said, okay. I left the girl, went back and hung out with the guys. 3 days later, after a chapter meeting, the 3 pledge masters said they wanted to meet with me specifically. I didn't think much of it. They walked me out, I remember. I'll never forget this moment. And they told me that my behavior was inappropriate with the fraternity values. And they said, you're bonged from the fraternity. I still remember the guy's name. I remember exactly how he said it. And just like my normal appear perfect, I acted like everything was fine. I had it together. I shook their hand, said thank you. The second they turned their backs, I was bawling, tears coming down my face. I called my mom because I had this huge fear. I had this huge fear of being alone. But it was only in that time of self-isolation and self-confrontation, I was forced to confront myself, admit that my values were horrible, that I had no dreams or purpose since hockey ended, and that things needed to change. So when I finally went into myself, I know this is a bit of a long story, but that's when I found meditation. That's when I started meditating just 10 minutes a day in the morning on Headspace, I believe. And it really started to shift things for me. Then I started getting into more personal growth and reading books. And since then, it's been a 2.5 or 3 year journey that it is the #1 reason why I think I have a sense of expanded awareness and wisdom for my age. Some really crazy things happen the more consistently you meditate, but the main things for me was I stopped attaching myself to so many outcomes, to clinging to happiness, to even things like anxiety. All of that stuff started going away. Little by little, I still had things that came up, but I don't know, I just started to feel this sense of peace and a wholeness within despite external circumstances. And I think that's really the start of what personal growth is. And so I'm so lucky that I was able to build that kind of foundation, because it really is the foundation for everything I do. And it's something I do very, I'm probably meditating, and this is gonna sound a little crazy, I'm an extremist, probably 5 or 6 times a day, but some of them are 2-minute spurts, some of them are 40-minute once a day, or a 20-minute in the morning. And then even right before here, I just took a couple breaths, really focused on the breath and the presence, and just regrounded myself in that seat of awareness. Because when you realize that you're not your thoughts and you're not your anxiety and your fear, of course I had fear coming on here, but I just let that mental chatter and those feelings pass and I don't engage with them, they're not going to affect me. And so that's the freedom and the inner peace is on the other side of meditation.
Well, I've been working on myself for a long time with personal growth, but I ask you what quest to take on Mind Valley now. I mean, you have such amazing recommendations. I'm taking Life Visioning Mastery because you recommended Michael Beckwith, and he is awesome, and his voice is so amazing. And I mean, I would see that I would give you advice for things to study, but you're giving me advice. You're telling me how to
Lori, it's
meditate.
mutual. It's mutual. You've been healing me. It's totally mutual. That's what a great friendship is.
I mean, you're mind-blowing in my opinion. I mean, for 23 to be so far self-aware and really trying to change so much, and you're doing such an amazing job with it. It's just really amazing to watch you change and to see you change. And I'm just so excited. It's neat to see you on an interview by yourself, you know, individually by yourself. It's exciting, right?
It's different. It's, you know, I've been on a couple by myself, a couple with my brothers. I like the ones with my brothers in a way because if I ever forget what to say, they always are there to build off me. But at the same time, I want to be an individual. So it's this same complex identity dynamic plays out in like my preference for being on an individual interview because I get to share my story without them versus wanting to lean on them at sometimes too in that collective. So it's interesting.
I bet that is kind of different to do it by yourself. As you know, you always tell those jokes at the end of your YouTube videos. Sabin has a YouTube channel, the Karma Quads, and it's amazing. I'm addicted to watching those videos. I love them. So I was going to ask, I wasn't sure if this is appropriate, but I wanted you to tell me, besides just being about you today, I wanted you to tell me what is your favorite thing about Mark?
Okay, so yeah, great. Yeah, I know you're gonna put me on the spot like that. I love it. I love it. Mark is. I have a complex dynamic with Mark. So him and I played ice hockey forward growing up. The other two played goalie, so we were closer, but we were also more competitive. Then we split off at college because we didn't want to be near each other. He ironically got dropped from his fraternity a week after I did. We're hundreds of miles apart. I visited Notre Dame to see my oldest brother. Get a call on the phone, I never forget, from Mark, and he got dropped for a similar reason. If that's not like telepathic communication, I don't know what is. And in that suffering, in that pain, we so badly desired to transfer to school together, and I'll never forget the moment. It actually wasn't Notre Dame, so we also got into Vanderbilt University. But we were hanging out in Mark's Wisconsin dorm. I was visiting him, and I remember the email came in that said, your decision is now ready at Vanderbilt, and so indescribable amount of butterflies and just nervousness. My heart sunk like, this is it. Are we going to finally get to be reunited to go to school together? And I opened mine, and to my confirmation, the screen blew up and it said, Sabin, you got in to Vanderbilt. But it was a really short-lived excitement because I was a stronger applicant than Mark. And I knew I couldn't be happy if Mark didn't get in too. I would have been crushed. And so Mark was so nervous that he closed his eyes and told me to open it for him. And I was struggling and clicking the thing, and finally I clicked it. It blows up. It says he got in too. And we just screamed so loud that the whole dorm floor could hear. And we had the most euphoric, blissful weekend together because we knew we were going to school together. Even if it wasn't Notre Dame, we ended up both getting into Notre Dame too. But it seems so great. But the irony is, just like when I'm home with all my brothers, the more time I started to spend with Mark at Notre Dame, the less it started out as this huge high. We're finally together, and baggage started coming up. And I think a lot of our time at Notre Dame, we were so busy that we didn't deal with that, and we didn't really talk to each other. And so we didn't have the best relationship, unfortunately, at our 2 years we've had so far at Notre Dame. And it's something we're really trying to work on when we go back next year. So you said the favorite thing about Mark. I'm getting to that. My favorite thing about Mark, he has this, if you knew him a couple of years ago, he didn't have this. He was so in his head. He was so anxious that he wasn't being fully his real self. And ever since he went to Jerusalem and came back after 8 weeks of service, something changed. He got a calm, kind of humorous and sarcastic view of life. He takes his life seriously, but doesn't take himself seriously anymore. And he can be so freaking funny sometimes because of that, and have this attitude that's just so refreshing and so needed, because I'm someone who definitely takes myself a little too seriously. And Mark developed that, and I could just tell that so much his real self that I never, unfortunately, really got to experience in childhood, because he didn't think that was worth showing, but something shifted in him. And so I just love that about him.
Okay, and now you know what's coming next. What is your favorite thing about Nolan?
Yeah. So not as big of a story with Nolan, because we've always been less close. But
Really,
man,
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, so we've always been in the same room, but I think I'd always been I was so in my own head and thinking about the future that we were kind of disconnected. I couldn't be present with him, but at least currently, I love the way Nolan is kind of like my spiritual buddy. He's so much a deep reflector, and he's taking the life visioning mastery of Beckwith, and he's loving it. And he's going through a lot of spiritual personal transformation in a very similar direction I am in. And so there's this thing about spirituality that I've found, not in a cocky or comparative way, but if people are on different levels of consciousness, it's sometimes can feel hard to relate to the people, even though you want to, because you want to accept everyone where they are and you want to love them, and they're on their own journey. It's hard to relate to them, and I felt that with some of my brothers, and my parents, my dad specifically. But Nolan is really on that same kind of plane, and so we always have the most kind of free-flowing, just conversations that when none of us are preparing anything to say, there's just this dynamic flow between the way we connect. And it's only something that happened recently. He used to get really anxious and insecure when I would be really passionate about something or be doing really well. And that's a childhood thing. And one day he just let that all go. He chose to let it go and be more open-minded. And our relationship has gotten so much better ever since. And I feel like I have the most clear communication with him in this moment out of any of my brothers.
Well, that's so exciting to hear. I did notice that he was with you on your last YouTube video, and I was excited to see that. That was really a great video. And then I don't really know much about Lennon, but what is your favorite part about Lennon?
Yeah, that's good. So Lennon's definitely the one I've had the most strained communication with, and I think he doesn't like when I say this, but we both butt heads because we're very strong-headed or stubborn in our own ways, and we can be judgmental of each other. But when I do break through that with Lennon, he has the biggest heart and passion for helping people and just for people in general. And he has his own baggage just like we all do. And it really, especially even in relation to me, but when you break down those walls, Lennon has this such a beautiful heart. And I see him a lot as like a leader amongst us, and someone who inspires, just like I see myself. So we're very different sometimes in our views, but underneath all of that, we have very similar qualities, even though we are a little bit different. And so I love that when I'm able to relate to Lennon on that level. That's definitely my favorite part about him.
He's the firstborn, right? Correct?
He was the firstborn by 30 seconds. That's correct.
30 seconds. And you're the lastborn, right?
By 30 seconds.
You didn't say either one of them was very handsome.
That's not my favorite thing. I mean, that would be admitting I'm handsome, and that's something I still struggle with sometimes, despite what everyone else tells me. I just did a Facebook Live on this. I don't know if you saw it. It was how others think I look versus how I think I look. I think that's so important because, again, external goals or external don't fill internal holes. So I can have 100. And I'm not in an arrogant way, but I probably had 100 women tell me I was super attractive at Illinois when I was finally like, first, my family told me that growing up. I didn't believe them. They're just my family. Then girls told me that. It filled me up like for half a second, and then I never thought it was enough. And then I hear people still telling me that you should model. You could be a supermodel. It's something I still have to work on. I still get insecure about my acne, even though someone will be like, you don't have acne. I don't know what you're talking about. But I still notice. I still notice that even today, this hair is like sticking up, and I do not like that. And I have a really hard time sometimes even seeing myself in the reflection, but especially on like camera and film and stuff. It's a huge insecurity I still have. So yeah.
I'm not sure which quest it was on, but one of the quests this morning, it was either Vishen Lakhiani or Michael Beckwith. They said to look in the mirror every morning as you're brushing your teeth and look into your eyes and say, I love you 10 times every morning. And then on the top of the mirror, they wanted us to write, I am enough. And I definitely think that if we start practicing that, I love you, I love you, I love you 10 times in the morning, and every time we go in to brush our teeth, you got to live with you forever. You might as well love yourself. And I'm working on the same thing. I think that's how come we connect, because people think we think a certain way about ourselves, but we're working on it.
100%.
We're working on it.
And Lori, I'll tell you, go for it.
No, I was just saying, I think because I play tennis and you're from sports as well, when you play sports in your own mind, you're never good enough. You got to keep on practicing and keep on getting better at this and get faster and hit the ball harder or whatever. And I just feel like that not good enough transfers over into real life. And we have to, I'm at a point right now, I mean, I'm getting ready to be 55 next week, that I'm like tired of putting myself down and not loving myself and not treating myself. I would never talk to anybody the way I talk to myself. So I'm working on the self-talk.
And I'll say it's so deeply ingrained for us because of the sports and years in that as our brains were forming. So it really gets stuck there. And I'll tell you that the things you said, it's from Vision, I know, because I do both. So I think Marissa Peer is the one that said, right, I am enough on the mirror. I literally have it in my mirror where I brush my teeth. I say, I love you 7 times. I am enough 7 times. And I do the Lisa Nichols, I'm proud of myself for X 5 times, forgive myself for, commit to myself to that. That's a start. I think it runs even deeper, and it's a great foundation to set. And I've made huge strides in it. But if I program my mind a certain way of not being enough since I was so young, literally neural pathways were formed as my brain was developing. They're in that development. I got to keep going deeper and deeper and continue doing that and other things and really go into myself before I can truly say I love myself fully, because it's a continual journey, and it's all about finding that balance between really accepting where you are now, but also knowing that like a year from now, this version of you will be inferior. I think those two can definitely be compatible. But again, I understand that on an intellectual level, whether I embody that or not is a whole different story and something I'm still trying to work on.
I've been listening to a bunch of Audibles lately. I am an Audible junkie, admittedly. And lately I've been listening to several books by Noah St. John, who I think is totally amazing. And I have an interview with him next Wednesday. And he has one book called The Great Little Book of Affirmations. And he says that if we start asking ourselves better questions, we get better answers. So instead of saying, like when you're playing sports and you do something wrong, instead of saying, why are you so slow? You're supposed to say, why am I such an amazing, for me, why am I such an amazing tennis player? Why am I such an amazing communicator? Ask yourself the positive questions of the things that you want to become. And then what happens is your brain goes to work to try to answer those positive questions. Like, why do I have this amazing self-love? Why am I so confident? Why am I so confident? You know, and it's and your brain goes to work to answer those questions. And I think that makes you become those things.
Yes, and you have to become.
I'm trying. I'm practicing.
No, you have to. Beckwith will say this. You have to become the things that you want. Manifestation doesn't work. You just want something and you get it. This happens sometimes. You want a lot of money, but then you get bills, and it's like, well, why is this happening? I said I wanted to manifest it. Well, maybe you're getting sent lessons in order so you can process those. And on the other side of that, then you can become the person who now matches, and I don't want to get too spiritual, but matches kind of the frequency or vibration. Now you're able to attract that thing. So it's really, and those questions are so good because when you ask those questions, you get steps get put in front of you. Now you can take actions on those steps and become the person who becomes a vibrational match, if you will, for that thing you want. Instead of just saying, I am this, I am this, I am this. Because if you don't believe it, you're now going to neutralize that belief. I am so healthy and fit. And I go, no, you're not. You're fat. Like if I was fat, let's say, I've neutralized that. Now that's not helping me. But if I say, why am I so healthy and fit? There's no subconscious counter. There's no counter to that. You can't resist that. Well, I'm not. You can't say I'm not, because what are you not? You're just asking a question. So those two are both layers that really make those questions so powerful.
I went on YouTube yesterday and I saw a video by Noah St. John. It was so unbelievable because, you know, we're part of the Inside Out Institute where you get conscious and subconscious healing as we're going through. And he was doing muscle testing on people when they said, you know, like, I am confident, and they didn't believe it. So it was negative.
Yeah.
But when they said, why am I so confident? It's a true statement. Like, why am I so confident? Then your brain goes to answer the questions. It's a positive, and your body believes that question.
I love that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was like blown away by it. Like, oh my gosh, I'll have to tell Sabin. So yeah. So
powerful.
What else do you do? What do you do at the end of your day? Do you meditate at night before you go to sleep, or?
Yeah, so it depends on how tired I am. I usually go to bed around 9:30. I'm usually up at 4:45 nowadays. I meditate usually for 20 minutes in the morning. It varies, and then 30 to 40 minutes in the middle of my day, because sometimes I get a crash and it's such a necessary reset for me. At night, I'll usually do a shorter meditation. I really like to, if I didn't do like a really good gratitude or forgiveness, which I think are two such important things, I'll make sure I do that at night. I'll do a forgiveness meditation because I love to go to sleep knowing there's no, something's not sitting in my heart that's hurting me. So I'll meditate. I'll ask myself some of those affirmations or lofty questions. I call them lofty questions to myself right before bed, because you're about to enter that subconscious state. I'm trying to see what else. I always finish with self-love. So I start and finish in the mirror with self-love. I took this technique from Jay Shetty, where if you write how you want to feel the next morning right before you go to sleep. So I write, I am waking up healthy, happy, and energized. And then as soon as I wake up, that's usually the first thing on my mind, because I wrote it down and thought about it before. And then I also write one question I want answered, because this is how we bridge the subconscious and conscious mind. Your dream-like state is your subconscious mind. It has infinite more possibilities and creations than your conscious mind. So I like asking a question that I really would like an answer to. And then oftentimes I'll wake up and just write the first thing that comes to my mind. And oftentimes I'll get an answer that morning to what I'm doing. So I try and mix in different things. I think I'm going to start incorporating a kind of financial abundance wealth wiring audio from Marissa Peer at the end of the night as well. So
that sounds so interesting. So tell me what your plans are for the rest of this month with Inside Out Institute.
Yeah, that's a great question. So by the end of November, I'm really trying to set up all the interviews. I think I'm going to do all of my interviews with through the first couple of weeks of December. So I'm very excited about that. I just got off the phone with someone. I don't want to give it away yet. Someone really, really incredible and amazing. You know who it is. I think I told you privately. He's a great guy. So I want to get all of those set up, really just continue to get those healings and those transformations and win all the battles, all the mental battles in my head. I'm on you versus your finances today, and that is a huge one for me, because I really grew up with the spirit of poverty mentality because of how money was treated in my household. So really trying to win those battles. And then I'm really trying to master the art of authentic networking. I really want to plant the seeds and build, and I'm taking that course through Mind Valley Master Authentic Networking, and it's incredible. I really want to, I've been talking to some people from Thailand or Germany, and it's really great what technology can do. I really want to build relationships and build that network that I know can always support me in my dreams, and I can support them. And then it's just all about that consistency. And I really want to keep deepening my spiritual growth and really continue to work on branding my message. I'm really in kind of it's almost like a friend of mine said, it's called, she said, I'm building in the background. And I would say that's a lot of what I'm doing now. It's a lot of, I don't leave my house that often. It's a lot of internal transformation from the inside out, right? That's going to prepare me to have that impact post-COVID that I really want to have, that global impact, that global speaker that I want to be, that world-renowned leadership coach, that podcaster, that author, all those things I want. Again, like you said, I have to become those things internally so I can have that impact externally. And so that's a lot of what I'm currently doing right now. And I see these kind of monthly initiatives with Inside Out and this transformation as just another step on that. And I'm really trying to be patient. And the last thing is I'm really trying to prioritize self-care, because I know that's so important. I've had a hard time with that.
Wow. I mean, you are such an amazing communicator. So I knew that this interview was going to be kind of easy, because you could just take off with whatever I would say. You're so great at it. What do you attribute that to? Did you have a lot of communication as a kid, or, I mean, you're just such a great communicator.
Thank you so much. So there's a lot of answers to that. I've always been a natural kind of charismatic communicator. Got it from my dad. He's an amazing communicator, but just like my dad, I've always had insecurities, even around speaking, that have plagued me. But a lot of them, as I've gotten healing, like energy healing from my healer, and released some emotional baggage, and as I've deepened my own spirituality and learned to really be present and surrendered to the moment, both of those have added so much to the ways I can, command the stage and stuff and not get as much stage fright. So I'm really speaking from the heart right now. I mean, I didn't plan this stuff to say. And so it's all of that. It's all of those things that really let me, I think spirituality helps you really let go of like all the worry and doubt you have about the future, and emotional healing really helps you let go of your past. So then I can just be present. When I could just be present, free of that stuff, I can use my natural gifts and abilities more effectively. And then the last thing I'll say is the Mind Valley course, Speak and Inspire with Lisa Nichols, how to speak authentically and powerfully and share your story. That one took off my YouTube channel, her whole dip theory idea and really sharing those struggles. That's what the next generation of speakers is going to be all about. So I think that's a mix. So it's kind of on the intellectual level, the emotional level, the spiritual level, and then just really finding and using my gifts and talents.
And lastly, I wanted you to mention the sports drink that you represent.
Oh, thank you so much. I haven't been as focused on that this month, so I almost forget. I almost didn't know what you meant there. But yeah, so I was very lucky to have a connection to someone who brought up this idea that, you guys are all like very healthy and jacked, if you will, very muscular, and you guys are quadruplets. You guys would represent this brand. It's called Bucked Up. I didn't know how well known they were until I had a friend tell me that after we were ambassadors. But I reached out to them because I had this connection, this very powerful connection, and he was like, just fill this thing out real quick. And before I knew it, we were ambassadors. And that means we get a certain amount off our orders, and we get a certain amount of revenue. So it's called Bucked Up. So we are Bucked Up ambassadors. You can go to buckedup.com/shop, and you can use the Karma Quad 20 to get 20% off. What I'll say is it's taken my workouts to a whole new level. Because of COVID, I have a home gym, but I've gotten so sick of it. I just took the pre-workout today. I swear it's why I'm on this. They actually have a pre-workout that helps you focus better. They have so many different pre-workouts for nuanced things and outcomes you want for building muscle. They have one that's non-caffeinated. It gives me, it's not just this caffeine rush high. It's this feeling that I'm unstoppable in the gym, and it even carries with me beyond. And so I've been obsessed with the pre-workouts that they've been using, and I've been taking it literally every single day. And they get top of the notch ingredients. They have everything, and I'm starting to learn more about their own ingredients that really tries to help you maximize not just your fitness, but your life. So I couldn't be happier to be a part of, be an ambassador. I'm very honored to be an ambassador for Bucked Up.
Oh, I love that. You should definitely put some of that information below on our live video so people can click that and order that stuff.
Oh, can I do that? Can I? Yeah, when you're done.
Probably
okay.
When we're done, you can put it in the comments. That would be awesome.
Sounds great.
So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on here and off the cuff answering all these questions. The questions were not planned, and how amazing you are to communicate like that. It's awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. You're so amazing. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Laura. Yeah, I'll see you soon, Laura. You're a great friend to me, so I'm lucky to just have a conversation like this with you. It's really amazing to get to see your face and have this interaction, so I couldn't be happier that we did this.
I know, it's usually just over the phone, so thank you so much for joining me. We'll talk soon.